gotta kick off the show here.
We're agreeing.
So cleaned up.
Welcome to the Mafia Cast, Bills Mafia. Today, I will be your host, Casey. As always, Mike to my right. And today we have a great guest. He's been missing for a little while, but we found him. We pulled him out. We have Bruce Nolan here with us. Bruce, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Well, I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob. It's
From podcasting.
Yeah, I've been missing for a while now, but you guys managed to find me in my bunker in an undisclosed location and drag me out of it to do a podcast. So congratulations for grabbing that. On a more serious note, I do feel like I've been like the designated guest spot guy since my hiatus from the podcasting space. Everyone's like, quick, guys, he doesn't have a show. Grab him.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I'm doing more work than I actually did when I did a podcast.
Well, I mean, hey, you were a popular guy. I mean, when we were all on Buffalo Rumblings, I mean, you had one of, if not the most popular show. I mean, for being a faceless and nameless guy, you were one hell of a popular character.
I think really what it is the mystique is just doing a lot of that heavy lifting for me. It's almost a morbid curiosity at this point. It's like, yeah, his content's fine and everything, but at some point he's going to screw up and say his real name and I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
So they're just waiting for my downfall.
I gotta be honest, since like I discovered you on Twitter years ago, I that was my goal. I was like, one of these days, I was like, I'm gonna find out one of these days. And then I got on Twitter more and got into this podcasting world, and the Jay Spences and Greg Tom Sets of the world, very, very few people know your name, and they're like, you have no idea how much. Like what it took for me to get their name. And Spencer's like, I only know it because I had to do the business side of Buffalo Rumblings and he has to give me his legal info. He's like, so if it wasn't for that, he goes, not even I would know it. So at this point, I've given up. I've thrown my hands up. When we were talking pre-show, when you decide to say you're done, you're done. And I've come to terms with it that if I never know who you truly are, I'm just glad I got to know this person.
The best part is that a significant chunk of the people who actually do know only found out one time, and then we've never used it since. We never talked about it, so they forgot. So there's actually two people in this space who at one point they knew my real name, and it was like 4 years ago, and now they're all like, I don't remember what it is.
Oh my gosh.
Like I had to tell them for business purposes, and then they were like, I don't remember what it is because it was one thing I just did a data input, and now I don't know what it is anymore. So that's always fun.
Best case scenario for you.
Right.
Oh, the absolute best case scenario. Yes.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I'd be like the crazy guy to get out a notebook and cross off all these things and connect all these dots, but no.
Yeah. Mike would look like Dexter with all the red line going from everywhere.
I don't even know.
Well, let's just jump right into this. Bruce, something that we didn't prepare you for because it happened today. Ramondre Stevenson, in my opinion, for as good of a running back, he has got paid 4 years, $36 million. And, when you break it down, it's $9 million a season. But for me, Ramondre Stevenson's never been anything. The way I put it to Mike before you joined us pre-show was he's kind of like Ryan Bates, to where if he was a lineman, he'd be the first lineman off the bench because he's good at everything, but he's not great at anything. So I'm going to translate that into James Cook, with next year being his last year on his rookie deal. What's your opinion on paying James Cook and the contract, and what do you think the contract would like? Would it be something like Ramondre's?
Every single person who has followed my content for any meaningful amount of time is going to know exactly what I'm going to say. And that is that I'm going to be everybody's least favorite content creator because everybody thinks that in a vacuum, they have these philosophies when it comes to football and team building, right? Always do this, never do this, lean toward that, lean away from that, whatever the philosophy happens to be. And mine is don't pay running backs a second contract. And everyone has that philosophy kind of as a general rule. They're all like, yeah, I think I can see why it's wise. Like even the people who don't really buy in, they're all like, yeah, I get it, until it's your guy. And then when it's your guy, it's different. Well, it's not different for me. So I'm not going to want to offer James Cook a contract when it gets there. And that is kind of the going rate. The $8 to $9-ish million a year range is almost the new normal for running backs. When you look at Saquon, we look at DeAndre Swift when they signed with the Bears. That's kind of like the new general range for running backs, unless you're Christian McCaffrey, right? Yeah. Christian McCaffrey, then it's, the gap between him and everybody else. Christian McCaffrey, and you drop a little bit of Jonathan Taylor, and then like there's a bunch of running backs beneath that. But for me, I understand that people are going to think that James Cook is more dynamic than Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson is much sturdier as kind of a bell cowish player. I don't think we've experienced a back like James Cook where he had a really good season, and somehow I don't think he's going to get as much next year. So I don't think that the volume for James Cook in 2023 was actually planned. I think that the injury to Damian Harris and the drop off in ability for Latavius Murray leaned more into that. At the end of the year, you went from feeling pretty good at the beginning of the year. You had Damian Harris, Latavius Murray was coming off a really good year, even though in 2022, he was still 32 years old, right? He still played really well. You thought, okay, maybe I've got a little bit of one of those defying father time situations going on. And then all of a sudden, Damian Harris goes down for an injury, retired. Latavius Murray starts to decrease in efficiency. Ty Johnson comes in and he's effective, but he's still Ty Johnson, right? He's not like a stellar piece that you feel really strongly about being your RB2. And so James Cook ends up getting volume by default. And I don't really think that that's part of the plan. And so I actually don't think you're going to see James Cook with as more significant volume numbers this year. You might think based on last year, well, he's going to take the next step, right? I don't think he gets as many touches this year as he did last year. So I don't think the appetite's going to be quite the same as it is this year. But even if the appetite was the same, I still wouldn't be interested in doing it. One of the reasons why I don't care about Ray Davis's age is because I don't want to pay him a second contract. Like, oh man, well, he's old. He's older as a player. He's going to be 23, 20, almost 24. He's going to be 27 by the time he gets to his second contract. Okay. I wouldn't want to give him a second contract anyway. So it doesn't matter to me. So I know that that's going to make me public enemy number, 4 behind, John Bon Jovi and Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. But for me, I'm gonna lean the way that the philosophy has always leaned, which is I don't want to pay James Cook.
Mike, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I see where he's coming from. And there's 2 more years on the contract. Is that right?
This upcoming year will be his last year on his rookie contract.
Okay. So it says after this year, we're done with James Cook if we don't re-sign him.
No, excuse me. I'm sorry. 2 years. There's 2 years.
26.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
2 years into a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you really got to ride it out because, not long ago, everyone was, running backs aren't getting paid, and they were kind of, a dime a dozen, I guess. So, I guess Bruce is kind of right. You really got to just ride it out and, see what's going to be available after the contract's up. And if he just, you get a line that can block and anyone could run the ball, right? So maybe it's not that important. That money needs to be spent elsewhere as well. It opens that up for more key spots.
See, where I 100% agree with Bruce is the Ray Davis aspect. 2 years into a rookie contract for our starting running back, we go out and we draft a running back who is, he can play all 3 downs. He's not very good at pass pro, but he can catch. He can run between tackles, can run outside. So I think that Brandon Beane has started this running back rotation to where just about every 2 years he's going to be looking for another running back to pair with the guy he has now, and to keep that spot cheap so he can spend money elsewhere. Bring in the Damian Harrises, Latavius Murrays, the Ty Johnsons of the world to be your running back 2-3 to pair with that rookie and that second, third year running back that you currently have that you want to be the number one. Mm-hmm. So I agree with that. I see paying running backs on like a case by case basis. Chris McCaffrey, you got to pay. In my opinion, I thought the Giants were dumb and they should have paid Saquon and not paid Daniel Jones. DeAndre Swift, that's, he's really the line for me. Like, I think the Lions are right to not, re-sign him because he had a hard time staying healthy when he played for them. But the Eagles, he played well last year, but what running back doesn't play well for the Eagles? James Cook, kind of falls into that Bills, into the DeAndre Swift for me, to where he is the line. If he was any better, I would be I feel like we not have to 100% sign him, but I would be much more leaning towards signing him. And if he was any worse, I'd be no, just don't worry about it. Ride the 4 years out, go get it. We got Ray Davis, go get another guy in 2 years and everything will be fine. So I'm on the fence mainly because Bruce doesn't know this. I love James Cook. I was begging for him in the draft. And when Beane was able to trade back, not once, but twice, and get him in the second round, I was over the moon. I was just thrilled. I saw him in Georgia. He was exactly what we needed in the backfield for the Bills at the time. That seemed to be a pass-catching running back. I know he struggled with drops here and there, and it's not more so the number of drops, it's the timing of the drops. And I want my childhood, my fan of him wants to resign him, but my head is saying just it's not worth it. The money can be allocated elsewhere.
Yeah. We love James Cook and what he did, especially this past year, but you got to face it that eventually, he might just move on.
Yeah. Running backs a Christian McCaffrey is an anomaly. That's right. Not a standard anymore. There's not many running backs that are going to be playing, same with Derrick Henry, that are going to be playing with such high volume and into their late 20s and early 30s and getting, second, even third contracts and extensions. So let's move on here from running back. And Bruce, I want to pick your head about this. Obviously, we've got some vacancies. We had some vacancies in the room, but now the wide receiver room is filled with Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, MVS. That's just, to me personally, those are the top five, and I truly do think they're locks. I think they all have their defined role. Well, I think Hollins and MVS have their defined roles in this offense, what if they do make the team, exactly what they're going to be doing. But what's your opinion? What do you expect out of this wide receiver room? And who do you think, and how many receivers do you think are going to make the team? Because usually it's 6. Last year we kept 5. The year before we kept 7. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts for this upcoming season of that room. Did we lose Bruce?
Looks like he's muted.
No, I'm here. I think that they're going to keep 6, and I think there are 5 locks, and I recognize that people are going to fight me on the 5 locks. But I think Shakir, Samuel, Coleman, Mac Hollins, and MVS are locks. I think those guys are locks. I think they're locks because of their ability to play wide receiver. I think they're locks because Mac Hollins can play special teams. And then at that point, you have Chase Claypool, Justin Shorter, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, Lawrence Keys, Tyrell Shavers, Brian Thompson, Xavier Johnson. They're fighting for maybe, if they keep 6, 1 spot, and it's going to be primarily based on their usage on special teams. And I understand that people think that, Chase Claypool is going to turn around, and he might. But if he's going to turn around and be wide receiver 6 for this team, it's going to be because he can play special teams. It's not going to be because they think he's going to take off and become a go-to target and recapture his rookie year form. Because even if he recaptured that level of form, you're not going to get that level of targets. It doesn't matter. If Chase Claypool turns his career around in Buffalo, we'll never know. And that's the truth. Because not only would he have to turn it around, he'd have to turn around and usurp Shakir, Samuel, Coleman, Hollins, MVS, like to get like meaningful volume. Because you know, Dalton Kincaid's in there. James Cook's going to catch some passes. So is Ray Davis. So is Dawson Knox. Like, there is a good, strong possibility that even if Chase Claypool turns around his career, you never even notice. You're just like, oh, good for him for making the team. And then that's it. That's it. Like the idea that he would somehow become like fantasy relevant, like is pretty unlikely. Like I'm going less than 1% chance. Like even if he did turn his career around, because you have to turn around and then jump all those people to get meaningful targets. So qualitatively, he could turn around, right? Be a meaningful producer, be someone who's maybe active on game days and is doing the things. But as far as like quantifying that feels highly unlikely. I recognize that before the signing of Claypool, everybody's favorite was Justin Shorter. You know, big man, run fast. Right? That's it. Just big man, run fast. I asked people on social media, please someone like explain Justin Shorter to me like I'm 5. Right? Why is there hype around Justin Shorter, right? And overwhelmingly what people said was big man, run fast. And I said, cool. Well, if big man, run fast is the only thing necessary to be good in the NFL, then nobody has a wide receiver problem. There's lots of big men who run fast. We're good to go. Everything's fine. I think that if it's not Claypool, who ironically enough came out as a player who the NFL teams thought, hey, this guy can make an impact on special teams. Like that was a thing, which is why I think that, you know, there's a reasonable chance Chase Claypool is 6. I think Tyrell Shavers has a shot at wide receiver 6 for the exact same reason, and it's teams. So that's the way I see it shaken out. I do think that there are 5 locks. I think that people are like weirdly lower on MVS than they are on Claypool, which is I don't quite get. So like we don't want someone who was like a contributor, like not a great player, but a contributor on multiple really good teams. But we do want someone who was at one point a long time ago a meaningful contributor on a team that wasn't very good. Like I don't get that at all. So I think it's just one of those mystery box kind of things with Chase Claypool. And I think it's a mystery box conversation with the wide receivers. I do think that the group is actually deeper this year than it was last year. I don't think it's as good. I think most people would probably say it's not as good. But if you tell me the wide receiver 3, 4, 5, 6, are they better than 3, 4, 5, 6 last year? Probably. So that depth is a nice thing for me, but I still think there's 5 locks. I think there's really a one spot battle, and that's if they keep 6, and they might not even keep 6.
I mean, I agree. I mean, Mike, he's been high on Chase Claypool since we signed him because of the potential. I mean, and I understand that aspect of it. Ronnie is in the boat that Bruce was just explaining that he doesn't understand that Ronnie seems to be a lot lower on MVS than a lot of the people. And I'm not crapping on my guy who's not here. I mean, he knows I love him. But he just doesn't. I guess I don't necessarily know exactly what it is that Ronnie dislikes so much about him. The leg he stands on is, well, he's played with Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, and he hasn't been able to carve out a career with either of those quarterbacks, which I understand, but we're not asking him to come in and be our number 2 like the Chiefs did the last 2 years and what the Packers did years previous. We're asking him to come in and play a role, to be wide receiver number 4 or wide receiver 5, whoever wins that battle between he and Matt Collins. So that's why I'm higher on MVS than Ronnie is. And I think Mike leans more so my side in regards to that, just because we're not asking him to do too much, kind of how I felt like we asked Dave Davis to do too much too soon. And what I'm really trying to pump the brakes on with us doing with Shakir this year and asking him to, get 150 targets, 120 targets. That scares me. I don't want to ruin him the way that I felt like we sort of ruined Gabe Davis and stunted his growth by asking him to do too much too quick. Mike, what do you think out of this wide receiver room?
I think maybe some people are down on Scantling because he played for the enemy, or like you said, the Rodgers thing, playing with Mahomes and he's not there anymore. Claypool, like you said, the potential, we saw him do really well, but like Bruce said, he did really good for a team that wasn't really that good. So maybe it just didn't take that much, to stand out in that situation. I'm still really hopeful, though. I want to see him turn it around. We got vacant spot, as far as like we were saying, the talent isn't as high as it was, but it's more spread out and there's more depth now. I don't know. It's really tough once you get down to the last few spots on the wide receiver chart and who's actually going to make it and not. And it's hard for me to, when you talk about special teams, I don't picture Claypool as a special teams player. I want to see him out there, making big plays. So yeah, it's either
regarding the special teams. I mean, it's with the new kickoff rules. That's where it's going to, to me, that's where the back end of rosters is going to be interesting. Now, Bruce, this is something I'll pick your brain on. Does the new kickoff rules, do you think that's going to sway the way that teams, obviously it's going to sway the way teams are building their roster, but for the wide receivers, 5 and 6, do you think Claypool being on a return team, and willing to be on a return team, do you think that is what will earn him the roster spot?
Yeah, I think it's going to change the way that people look at their roster construction. I kind of wonder if teams are going to start carrying one additional linebacker. I wonder if they're going to start carrying one additional linebacker, or one additional wide receiver who's of meaningful size, and you can count them as a gunner and as someone who can, run down the field and block and also tackle on special teams. So I do wonder if that's going to cause people to kind of reevaluate roster construction one way or another. We have a tendency to only think about it like wide receiver 6 versus wide receiver 5, or wide receiver 6 versus wide receiver 7, but that's really not the way it works. When you think about the 53-man roster, a lot of times that 53rd man is a 5th linebacker versus a 6th wide receiver. And we don't think about it cross positionally the way we probably should. And so for me, that's what's going to change. It's that 52nd, 51st, 53rd man decision. Those things are probably going to need to be reevaluated. I am fascinated because if you want a competitive advantage in the NFL, rule changes are the pivot points.
Yes.
It's almost like the meta of football has shifted slightly and you have to adjust to the new meta. And so for the Bills, I am just intrigued beyond recognition about what this kickoff is going to look like for a lot of teams. Because I think there's going to be a team that wins a game or two that they probably shouldn't have won because they identified a market inefficiency or they took advantage of something specifically on kickoffs and made it work for them. And other teams are going to be rushing to catch up. It's going to be, the Wildcat all over again. It's going to be RPOs. It's going to be whatever the new fad is. It's going to be kickoffs. It's going to be, we found this new creative way to do it. And we're going to end up kind of ahead of the curve for a minute. And everyone else is going to have to catch up. But I actually thought about something while we were talking. And I thought about the wide receiver thing as you guys were talking about Claypool. I think this is what it is, guys. I think that people just want either stars or people they think can become stars. That's it. And that's what it is with Claypool versus MVS, is that nobody, not even the most ardent MVS defenders, think he can be a star. But with Claypool, it's like that, we thought maybe at one point a couple years ago, maybe he could be. So we want either stars or people we think can become stars, which means what happens is there's a vacuum and there isn't any room for players who are just contributors.
Right. There
isn't any room for this guy who's just, he's a wide receiver 4. Good for him. That's a good, valuable position. Let's get a guy who comes in and contributes. No. We want to push that guy off the roster in favor of somebody who could be a star. And so what happens is, as long as we've isolated in our head the idea that someone can no longer be a star, now we're done with them. Now we're done with him. It's the Levi Wallace thing all over again. It's the Dane Jackson thing all over again. If we don't think they can be a star, we're done with them. They don't have any room in our minds to occupy any space or on our rosters. We don't want them. Unless they, A, are a stud, or B, we think they can become a stud, we don't want to talk about them. And so I think that's what it is. I think that's what happens with Shorter. I think that's what happens with Claypool. It's just we don't know he's not a stud. Like, and that's good enough for us. Like, it's like when you go up and there's two girls you can ask out, right? One of them has already expressed interest in you. And you're like, yes, that's awesome. But one person hasn't said no yet. And so immediately you're like, well, I'll gravitate toward the person who hasn't said no yet. You're like, but there's a girl right there. And like, go get yourself a date. Do it. And they're like, no. I'm going to go talk to this other girl because she hasn't said no yet. Like, that's not a good enough reason to go talk to someone they haven't said no yet. And I think that's kind of the mindset. And I think I'm isolating it in my head as we're talking about it. You guys can tell me if you think I'm onto something, but that's kind of where I'm going.
100%. I mean, it's the old adage, everybody wants what they can't have. Like we all want to shoot for the moon. We all want all of our players to be stars. But I think that's where, like, when we signed Mac Hollins, like I was thrilled because I was like, all right, I know what he is. He's a 4th, 5th wide receiver who's going to come in just to spell some guys. He plays special teams. He's been a captain. Like he's a glue guy. He's not somebody who's going to absolutely go off, in fantasy football or, be our number one receiver, but he's going to like make a play or two for us during the season while contributing on special teams and keeping that locker room together. Which is something that wide receiver room seems to have been struggling with the last couple of years. And I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm not naming any names. But we all know that it seemed that way, that it was more about one than the whole. It was more about one slice than the whole pie.
Yeah.
So before we move on to our next topic, real quick, let's hear from our buddy John over at Game On Sports.
Hey, it's John from Game On Sports Memorabilia. Check out our huge selection of unopened wax boxes of Pokemon cards. You have to see our selection of over 2 million sports cards in stock, plus hard-to-find card supplies. And if you have anything to sell, bring it in. We can help you determine the true value before you sell it. We pay fair market value every day. It's Game On Sports Memorabilia, 2670 Dewey Avenue in Greece. Check out our podcast for news and information on the card and collectible universe. Also, check out our Facebook page.
For more, call 481-2153. That's 481-2153.
Are you still muted?
There we go.
No, I'm
and
here.
that was our buddy. That was our buddy John over at Game On Sports. You can visit him over in Hamburg or over in Greece. And in a couple weeks, he will be having Pete Metzlars and Daryl Talley in for an autograph signing. $20 for an autograph for Pete Metzlars and $25 for Daryl Talley. He will have mini helmets and jerseys and 8x11 photos for purchase there, or you can bring your own memorabilia.
You might see us there too.
Yeah, and Mike and I will be there. I forgot about that. I forgot we were going to that.
Come out and see us.
So,
yeah.
Our next topic is, like, Bruce, I'm curious, what out of this, I mean, we've lost Diggs, we've lost Davis, we've lost Morse, Poyer. In my opinion, we're more likely than not losing Micah Hyde. We've lost vets. We've lost the guys that start, and Tre'Davious White. Do not let me forget Tre'Davious White. We've lost the guys that started this team, that were the building blocks of the team we see today. So with all these new guys coming in, like, who specifically are you excited to see coming into 2024? And what group do you have the most excitement for? Like, who's somebody, like, what's a group that some people may be lower on, but you have like high optimism for?
When it comes to individual players, I, like many other in Bills Mafia, am excited to see potential step from Dalton Kincaid. I think that if Dalton Kincaid would had a wide receiver next to his name instead of tight end, I think the Bills fans would be very, very pleased overall with the pass catchers for this team in 2024. That's what I think. It's really interesting because after the last draft, when people were trying to talk themselves into Dalton Kincaid, because what happened was you go through all the stages, right? You see tight end Dalton Kincaid, they're like, tight end, right? And then people who don't actually watch any of the players leading up to the draft, then they start talking themselves into it over and over again. And the overarching concern was, well, it's tight end. How are the Bills going to utilize 2 tight ends? How are they going to do that, right? They're not a 12 personnel team. And then the people start talking themselves into it. They go, well, he's a pass catcher, right? He's the best pass catcher in the team. Fast forward like 8 months, and we don't have any good pass catchers. But you just called that guy a pass catcher. Like, I don't understand. It's a testament to the things we tell ourselves, right? We talk ourselves into positive when we want to be positive. And we talk ourselves into negative when we want to be negative. Because the truth of the matter is, we don't actually care what the data actually says. The truth is, we don't care about reality. We've never cared about reality. If we did, we wouldn't be fans. We don't care about reality at all. We care about whatever it is we feel, and then we would like to justify that feeling through usage of whatever data we need. We just go out to find things that reinforce our beliefs and tell us that it's okay to feel the way we're feeling because we want to stay in our nice little bubble where every feeling we have is justified. And so that's what happens. We do it after the draft, try and say that everybody that the Bills pick, right, no matter who it is going to be the best player ever. Because we're not intellectually honest. We're intellectually dishonest because we're fans. So if you didn't like Keon Coleman before the draft, then you draft Keon Coleman. Now you love Keon Coleman because you're dishonest. And if you didn't have an opinion of Keon Coleman before the draft and the Bills drafted him, now he's your favorite player because your team drafted him. But if the Patriots drafted him, now he's a bum. Like, that's just the way it works. And so we tell ourselves these lies over and over and over again, and we did it with Dalton Kincaid. But I'm excited about the Bills pass catchers being able to step up. I like Curtis Samuel. I like Khalil Shakir. I like Dalton Kincaid. I don't think the wide receiver group, and I've said this before, is as good as it was last year. And I don't think that's a crazy statement because you had Stefon Diggs last year and this year you don't. But that doesn't mean I can't be excited about the pass catchers in a different format. You know, I can't be excited about, I wasn't on the re-sign Gabe Davis train. So on one hand, you got rid of Stefon Diggs. And on the other hand, you let go of a player that I kind of didn't want to re-sign anyway. So I was going to be happy if Stefon Diggs stayed and Khalil Shakir took a step up into a more targeted role. So I'm actually balancing out the loss of Diggs with the promotion of Shakir and the influx of Curtis Samuel, who I like better than Gabe Davis. So for me, it's not just that. It's also a bit of depth. And like I said, 3-4-5 this year, probably better than 3-4-5 last year. So I'm excited about Dalton Kincaid as a player. And I'm excited to see how this new group of pass catchers does. And I don't think it's going to be a massive problem. I think it's not going to be as meaningful at the top because you don't have Stefon Diggs. And I think that's going to have an effect on Josh Allen in the sense that he does have to play within the system more this year than he did at the beginning of last year. One of the things we were talking about a lot after the Jets game week 1 in 2023 was Josh Allen needs to just calm down a little bit, right? He's just straight Taylor Swifted, right? He needs to calm down. He's being too loud. He's jumping too high, right? Just play within the system. Well, you can get away with some of that stuff when you have Stefon Diggs.
Yeah.
Right? All the old meme, right? Well, Diggs is down there somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
You can do a meme thing. But if you don't have Stefon Diggs, you can't get away with that quite like you used to. So now you have to play with the system. Now, I do think we saw that better from Josh Allen down the stretch with Joe Brady. So if the thing that is required of Josh Allen is to play more within the system because you don't have Stefon Diggs, and you saw him play more inside the system down the stretch, then that actually should give you optimism, not pessimism. So I'm excited for the passing attack, not because I necessarily think it's going to be way more productive than it was last year. I don't. And not because I think the wide receiver core is better than last year. I don't. But it's different qualitatively. And I think there's just enough change. That's been my overarching theory this entire offseason was you don't want to overhaul the entire roster. You want a pinch of change. You want a splash, a dash, right? If we're cooking, you'd put a little bit of salt into the palm of your hand so you could see it, and then you shake it over top, right? Just a dash of salt. And that's what you want. You want a dash of change, and that's what you got. So that's what I'm excited about for the Bills in 2024.
Yeah,
Mike, what excites you most?
it certainly was a dash of change. It was kind of salty too, I think. Yeah, you know what I'm most excited for is I think defensive line, defensive end. We've been trying Von Miller, Leonard Floyd. He's not here anymore, and we have some younger guys that are in a situation to step up this year. So talk about player groups. I'd say defensive end and maybe even linebacker too. I mean, Milano, I'm sort of a little worried about. I can't get around it. But guys like Dorian Williams that showed some good stuff last year, flying around, going to the ball, and things like that. So I'd say more defense. I think we're looking for these guys to step up. You've heard McDermott say it about Epinesa, Groot, and that. So excited to see them guys step up and earn their spot in the as a starting role.
The defensive line, and especially to me, edge is going to be very interesting this year because I think Bobby Babich stepping in and being the defensive coordinator is going. I mean, it's going to be McDermott's defense, but Babich was brought in for a fresh voice for McDermott. Somebody that he gave him, like, now he can actually have true, strong opinions as to how this defense can be ran. And, the guys drafting of Javon Solomon, bringing back Von Miller, bringing back AJ Epinesa, bringing Dwayne Smoot and Casey Toohill. There's an influx of new guys here. We didn't just bring back, the Shaq Lawsons of the world, the guys that have been around just because of the back end of the rosters, they know the system. I'm really curious to see how much of a rotation that this defensive line goes through this year, because you heard from Von Miller when he came over here. He played best when he was playing about 85% of the snaps. And that's what he did in Denver. And then, he got a little bit older. He was coming off an injury, going to the Rams. So, let's cut him back a little bit. And I think McDermott did that too. And I think it was working until that second injury. But then I think that they just didn't have the bodies and the skill and the talent to keep. They shouldn't have kept with that rotation because they didn't have that talent and depth at that position. I think they should have let AJ and Groot go a little bit more. I understand with Leonard Floyd, he led our team in sacks last year. But I really would like to see more AJ Epinesa getting more than just 40% of the snap share. Because, they're paying him 2 years, $13 million. I know that's not an astronomical number, but it's still something. So they do like him. And I think that he might end up being the guy that leads us in sacks this year, especially if they do increase his snap count. I think Von Miller is going to be a situational pass rusher. And same with Javon Solomon. Dwayne Smoot, I think he's our new Shaq Lawson. He's there just to spell guys. And I'm really curious to see how the rotation works for the defense this year. If they're going to stick more with just more of the same 4 or 5 guys or 2-3 guys coming off the edge. I'm not so much worried about the defensive tackle. I'm very pleased with our defensive tackle room actually at this point in time. So I'm with you, Mike. I'm excited to see what this defensive rotation and what this defense is going to look like this year.
Mm-hmm. Now,
so
D-tackle, I just want to say real quick, we'll have a little bit. You think we'll have a little bit of rotation at D-tackle with Dwayne Carter there, right? We got to work him in. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to leave him out. Another exciting player.
Bruce, what do you think about Dwayne Carter?
I'm a little biased because before the draft, I had a standing rule that anytime I saw a mock draft with Dwayne Carter on it, I gave it a like.
Really?
Like you could go back through my post and say, well, I'm a simple man. I see Dwayne Carter, I hit like. Like that's simple. Like he was one of my absolute favorite late day 2 targets at defensive tackle. And then when the Bills drafted him, I was like, you can't win them all, but you can win some of them. And I'm excited about that one. I think that Dwayne Carter is a is a marked upgrade from the backup defensive tackles that we've had, specifically 3-tech. And I actually think that very sneakily, the defensive tackle room is as good as it's been in a minute.
Yes.
I really do for the Buffalo Bills. And I know that it kind of flew under the radar because we've been focused on wide receivers, defensive ends, but I actually think this defensive tackle group is probably as good as it's been in a minute for the Bills, because I do think that getting Daquan Jones back was great. I don't think that the concern about his health is really there, because it's not like he ended the season recovering from his pec injury. I mean, he came back and was playing at a high level. So that just takes that whole, well, can he return to form? Like, it takes that question off the table, because I already saw him return to form. So I'm good there. And I think Austin Johnson is an upgrade from what you had. And I think Sean Williams is an upgrade. I think relative to Tim Settle and Jordan Phillips, I'd rather have Austin Johnson, Sean Williams, and Dwayne Carter. So for me, I think this is, I know that there's concern about the edge, and there should be, quite frankly. I agree with you that Dwayne Smoot, I think, is going to be a contributor to this team. And I think that not getting Von Miller back to form hurts on that contract. It just does, right? Everybody wants the Buffalo Bills to take a big swing every single offseason. Von Miller was the big swing. It was going to work out until he got hurt. He was playing really well until he got hurt. But you get hurt at that age, it's just different. So you took a big swing. It didn't go your way. That's what it boils down to. And now you got a contract that you can get out of later on. But for now, it's just, you just got to kind of eat it. And so I know there's concern about the edge, and quite frankly, there should be. You're hoping that AJ Epinez's efficiency is going to kick in with higher volume. And I think that's wonderful, but that extrapolation doesn't really work. Like, you can't say, well, he got 6.5 sacks and he played, 200 snaps. Well, if he plays 400 snaps, he'll get 13 sacks. Like, that's not how it works, right? Efficiency doesn't hold at higher volumes most of the time. So I think that you're going to need to see another step from AJ Epineza, and you're going to need to see another step from Gregory Rousseau, that I think he was getting ready to take another step before he kind of fought through some injuries last year. And that's asking a lot of ifs, right? If Von Miller gets a burst back, if AJ Epineza takes a step, if the trajectory for Greg, that's just a lot of ifs in that room. And that makes people uncomfortable, and that it should, quite frankly. But I think the benefit on that defensive line is at defensive tackle.
For sure. So the Von Miller contract, when it came out, it was astronomical. 6 years, $160 million. But it was really, when you read between the lines, it was really a 3-year, $54 million deal. And he even gave some of that money back this year. So I fully expect, and I did since the day we signed him, that he will be on our team for 3 years. And that's it. By that time, he was going to be aged, like Father Time was going to have caught up to him. I didn't expect the injury. That just sped up the clock for him in Father Time. So I fully expect this to be Von Miller's last year playing for the Bills, just mainly because of that contract. He's a good locker room guy. Everybody's going to love him. He's got one of the greatest, minds to play that position. So you'd love to get a guy like Javon Solomon in there to learn behind him, and you can throw AJ Epineza and Root into that. But like Bruce just mentioned, we haven't seen Root or AJ Epineza take those steps from learning behind him. Now, is it due to their injuries? Which the injuries are kind of concerning me with Root, because there hasn't been a single year that he hasn't missed games because of injury. And when big guys start getting their feet hurt, that's what worries me. It's a lot. Hurting your foot is a lot different than hurting your arm, because they're linemen. They're on their feet. They're really pushing. That's Root's. That's their thing. They have to be able to move and move quick. And if that injury is nagging, then that's what really scares me, and to stunt his growth.
Mm-hmm. You talk about the injuries. I just want to point out, like Epineza, he might have had his greatest game if he didn't get hurt when he got that interception. Yeah. I forget exactly what game it was, but
Washington, right?
Was it against the Chiefs?
Washington or the Chiefs?
Chiefs.
I think he's done it. I think he's done it to two. Hasn't he done it to Washington and the Chiefs? That whole I'm going to grab an interception from the defensive line.
Am I like hopeful
something?
I was like, Epinesa is going to win me this game, and then he never came back in after the big play. And it's like, what the hell?
Right.
He pulled a Costanza, right? He told one really good joke. Everyone laughed. And then while they were laughing, he was like, that's it. I'm out. And then he just walked out.
Yeah.
The original.
But we stay healthy, though. Healthy, a big thing this year, too.
Yeah, health. I mean, that's 100%. I mean, I think all three of us can be in agreement to where if we had half, I would give you half of the guys that we were missing in that divisional game. I think we win that football game.
Yeah.
I don't need both of the starting linebackers in there. Give me one of them. I don't need, both our starting corners. Give me one of them. Like, speaking of Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas, I understand Douglas he played on one leg, basically. He was not 100% from his injury. So I think health, we've been bit by it the last 2 years. And I kind of mentioned that many moons ago to you guys on the show that we had been so healthy for so long that we were spoiled and it was going to catch up to us. And it finally caught up to us. It was a matter of time. Our luck ran out. So I'm hoping that this past 2 years kind of hit the reset button for us, and now is the time that we can start being healthier, instead of going into a playoff game with our fifth and sixth linebackers as the starters.
Right. So these players could take a full step without getting that next step, without getting hurt mid-step.
Right. Yeah, it's just one step forward, 2 steps back. That's the way it really seems with some of these guys in their progression. So we've talked about what excites us most for 2024. Now, Bruce, this will be our last topic for tonight. I know we're pushing almost an hour here. What's your biggest concern for 2024? Who worries you the most?
It's the safeties. I like Mike Edwards as an acquisition. I do. And I think that when I say safeties, it's specifically safety talent. It's not Sean McDermott's ability to manage safeties. I think one of the things that kind of lessens my biggest concern is the fact that Sean McDermott has a history of being able to turn duct tape and baling wire into a suitable defensive backfield. We've seen him do it before, right? He could turn me into a starting safety, and I'm not as athletic as these players. So for me, I feel good about that. But I do think that Hyde and Poyer were able to play above the X's and O's. And I think that you need to have safeties who can generate explosive plays for your defense and prevent explosive plays for your offense. That's what I want. And to do that, I need ball skills. I need trajectory ability. Like, you need to be able to measure trajectory in the air. You need to be able to tackle, right, to prevent it. You need to be able to run the alley. And coming from distance and tackling as a safety is one of the most difficult things to do in football. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever done it before, but I've done it before. And it's really, really hard when you're playing like not NFL level. It's really hard, right? You can't. The angles are weird. People are coming at you from different angles. There's blockers all over in your face. You're trying to navigate and negotiate your way through traffic. It's spatial awareness. It's agility. It's tackling. It's range. It's all these skills, and it's so hard to do. But in today's NFL, where you're constantly in too high and you have light boxes, being able to come from distance and stop an explosive play from happening as a safety is almost just as important as taking the ball away yourself. And so I do think you had safeties who were capable of being able to play above the X's and O's and make explosive plays on defense. Do you have that now? I don't know. We'll see. I liked DeMar Hamlin in run support a couple years ago when he had to fill in. But I don't know what you're going to count on at that point. I mean, think Taylor Rapp. I was surprised when Taylor Rapp got re-signed because I don't think he played overly well last year. I mean, second year in the system could improve for sure. But you're going from just players that I know it was the right move to go away from Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. I know it was. right? They had both clearly lost a step, and they were not delivering the same level of play that they had previously been delivering. And I think the people who are banking on that name, people who are in the national media who don't realize that they were kind of trending in the wrong direction, they're like, oh, you lost 2 star safeties. No, we lost 2 people who used to be star safeties.
Yes.
But still, you replaced them with a second round rookie who I like, mind you, but still a rookie, right? And a free agent on a really small contract, and a guy who filled in a couple years ago. And so for me, it's I have concerns about the talent level there. I don't have really concerns about the floor, because I do think, like I said, Sean McDermott can turn a trash can into a full-blown basketball court when it comes to safeties. But that's dealing with the floor. But what about the ceiling that you get from those upper echelon players? Is that something we're just going to have to live without? And are you going to make that up on the pass rush? Because we just already established that the defensive ends, we have concern, right, over that. So it's, where are those explosive negative plays going to come from if you don't have the players on the edge that are going to generate them, and you not have the safeties who can generate them? You better hope that Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard can both stay healthy and try and get those on the second level, because you might not get them on the first or the back end.
See, that's right there where I'm at, to where I think I think this year they're going to rely on the corners more than we've ever have. And that's because we're missing everybody. I mean, we're missing Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. We heard it from Rasul Douglas himself. He would step on the field and he would be like, all right, guys, what am I supposed to do? Talk to Micah and Jordan Poyer. Because, what we're going to miss is, their cerebral, how smart they were. And they always knew where to be and when to be there. They just couldn't be. They just couldn't get to those spots anymore, to Bruce's point, to where they've lost a step. We didn't see Micah Hyde soaring in and picking off Mac Jones like we saw him do 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point. They're older players. They were great players. They've lost a step. Now I'm curious to both of you, who do you guys think are going to be the starting safeties for the team this year? Me personally, I think it's going to be Cole Bishop and Mike Edwards. I think they're going to ask Mike Edwards to play high safety more so often than they are Cole Bishop. They're going to have him playing around the line more often, because we've seen how good he is at coming downhill. And I think they're going to use Taylor Rapp the same way they did last year. And when they do want to go to a Buffalo nickel, and they'll pull Teron Johnson out and put him in there, or if they do want to run a dime, they'll put him in there instead of the Cam Lewis's of the world. Because Elam can't play nickel. So Bruce, Mike, who do you guys think is going to be the starting safeties?
I want to say Edwards and Rapp, but Edwards is hurt. I don't know what the update is on the injury. He hasn't really done nothing here yet. Rapp, only because he's been here already. Of course, DeMar Hamlin, we saw him come in and make plays as a backup, but can he really be the starting safety on this team? And then the only other hope is Cole Bishop, the rookie, which, you can't really put it all on him. Even our first pick, Keon Coleman, he's still a rookie. You can't expect all these big things from him. There's still going to be a learning curve, going from college to the NFL. So as of right now, I say it's got to be Edwards and Rapp. Edwards, who's been in the league, for more time, but Rapp's established here more.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you. I think if Edwards is healthy, it's going to be Edwards and Rapp until Cole Bishop is kind of ready to go.
Mm. And you're right. This is the biggest concern, because you look what we did with it. It was a big concern before our wide receiver concern. It was a big concern last season. What are we going to do at the end of this year? And it doesn't seem like we solved it. We lost Diggs, but look at all the talent we brought in. We didn't bring in a lot of that depth here like that, I guess. So
No, that's a good point. I mean, we filled in the holes in the wide receiver room. You know, we're trying to piece it together. Like many people have said, we're kind of going the money ball route. But at safety, I think, yeah, Bruce is right. McDermott's going to rely on his ability to transform the three of us to be the starting safeties for the Buffalo Bills this year. You know, if he can do it with, you know, Micah Hyde, who the Packers shooed away after a rookie contract, and Jordan Poyer, who was shooed away from the Browns, and turns them into literally first and second team All Pros and Pro Bowlers. I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with a young guy in Cole Bishop, who is naturally talented and already good at this position, how high he can get his ceiling, because Bruce is right. The floor is not what we're worried about. It's the ceiling and how good they can possibly be. But on that note, gentlemen,
yeah,
go ahead, Mike.
We also played with the idea. I know Ronnie likes to bring it up. Like he was saying, you know, could Rasul Douglas play safety? You know, so that there just shows the concern that we all have.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, if we didn't know what we were going to do, you know, at one point we were down Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. We missed them, yes, but like we didn't struggle how I think we all kind of expected to. And that was when they were playing, you know, at the top of their game. So I'm excited to see what we can do with healthier, younger guys that are really want to eat. You know, they really want to taste what it's like. I know Mike Edwards has won a Super Bowl or two with the Chiefs. But he was shooed away from them. You know, clearly they didn't think he was good enough. So now he's got something that he needs to fight for. He's fighting for his career right now. So, gentlemen, we're pushing an hour. We're going to get us all out of here. Bruce, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us. It was really fun talking to you, and tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, I mean, I got to be honest. You know, when Ron said he wasn't going to be here, I was like, well, should I just cancel? I mean, are Casey and Mike even worth it? No, I'm just kidding. And you guys were fantastic hosts. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. If for some reason you're listening to the show and you're like, yeah, that guy, definitely need more of that guy, then you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bruce Exclusive, and stay tuned in regards to information regarding me re-entering the podcast space on which I have been a hiatus from recently.
Oh, so you might be hinting at something.
I might be. I might be
Very
hinting at a hint. It's hintception is what it is.
Yeah. Right. I feel like we're in the legal tampering stage right now.
Yeah. I got all froze up.
I did too for a minute. On that note, everybody, thank you very much. Real quick, we will be taking the next month off. The Mafia cast, we're just going to be taking a break. We're in the dog days of summer. Everybody just kind of wants a break. So for everybody here at the Mafia cast, stay tuned. If anything breaking news happens, we will be doing an impromptu show. But until then, everybody have a good rest of June. We'll see you mid-July, and go Bills. Tell your friends.
Go Bills.